Investigative Assignment Number 96-02-262, May 18, 1998. Investigation Report Number 27. To Ralph J. Ray, Jr., Chief Assistant State Attorney, from Philip J. Mundy, Investigator. Subject, Review of Radabaugh Road Crime Scene and Ottis Toole 1983 Reenactment. Regarding Homicide Investigation of Adam Walsh. Enclosed, 1. Statement of Mr. Howard Howe. 2. Statement of Detective Larry Hoisington, Hollywood PD. The Radabaugh Road crime scene site is located at what is now mile marker 170 of the Florida Turnpike. This location was formerly mile marker 126 and is referred to as such in the 1981 to 1984 Hollywood police reports. It is at this location that Ottis Toole claimed that he left the body of Adam Walsh after severing his head. The victim's head was recovered from the waterway at mile marker 174, previously mile marker 130. As part of the overall review of this case, additional follow-up investigation was conducted in regard to the Radabaugh Road site. The investigation of the Radabaugh Road site was combined with a review of the circumstances surrounding Ottis Toole's reenactment and return to this location with the Hollywood Police in October 1983. On December 15, 1997, Hollywood PD detectives Mark Smith and Larry Hoisington accompanied UNI to both the Radabaugh Road site and the mile marker 174 site. At that time, Detective Hoisington was able to narrate for us how the reenactment was conducted, routes taken, and comments and reactions of Ottis Toole. Although Detective Hoisington had submitted a police report regarding his involvement in the reenactment, a statement was taken from him providing greater detail and utilizing photographs as reference guides. The statement is attached as Enclosure 2. The photographs referred to in the statement may be found in the Master Adam Walsh photo file notebook compiled by this investigator and maintained as part of this SAO case file. On December 30th, 1997, this investigator went to the Radabaugh Road site and took a number of photographs of the area. This was done in preparation of the taking of Detective Hoisington's statement and to perpetuate the site photographically. Since 1981, the site has changed both through natural and man-made events. The master photo file contains descriptions of the area explaining the changes. While photographing this area, contact was made with Howard Howe and Ray Ellis Green. These two men have lived and worked in the area for many years, including 1981 and 1983. Mr. Green is in fact the owner of Green Groves, which is the property east of the Turnpike. Both men explained some of the changes that had been made in the area, such as excavation on the private property where Toole claimed he left the body. In 1983, these two men observed the search efforts that were conducted by law enforcement personnel and of course learned that they were looking for the remains of Adam Walsh. Mr. Howe, who hunted animals in the area, commented that he thought at the time that sadly the police were wasting their time. He remarked that if a small human body with open wounds had been left in the open or even a shallow grave, it would not have lasted very long in this area and likely would have been carried off by an animal. A statement was later taken from Mr. Howe and is submitted as Enclosure 1. Another aspect of the review of the Radabaugh Road site was to ascertain conditions that existed there in July 1981. Mr. Howe explains that at that time there was work being done requiring construction vehicles to have egress from the private property to the turnpike. In Mr. Howe's statement, he describes that a woven wire gate with a post at each end was erected, was easily opened and closed, had no locking device, and during daylight hours was usually left in the open position. Based on his observations, there were no personnel on site to prevent unauthorized access from the turnpike onto the private property area. It was learned that the contractor for the work being done at this location in 1981 was Dickerson Construction. A Mr. Larry Dale of Dickerson Construction was interviewed, and he did recall to some degree the job site at Radabaugh Road. He basically confirmed that there was a temporary access road from the turnpike onto the adjacent private property, and that a makeshift gate had been erected there. No security personnel were employed, and to the best of his recollection, there was no locking device on the gate. Hollywood Police Detective Hoffman's report on October 27, 1983, listed several Florida Highway Patrol troopers who were at the Radabaugh Road site during the search. An effort was made to locate and interview the troopers for their knowledge of the site in 1981. Trooper Ernie Chapman recalled the scene and the construction work being conducted in 1981. There was a gate, but it was often in the open position and when closed, could easily be pushed open. There was no security preventing access to the area. Former Trooper Rick Weaver advised that the site had no security personnel and only a temporary access gate. His recollection is that there was nothing to prevent anyone from driving into the property area from the turnpike. Incidentally, Trooper Weaver was the first law enforcement officer at the scene of the recovery of the head of Adam Walsh, but had nothing to add to that event. Trooper Joe Williams was contacted and interviewed and recalled patrolling the area and that there was work going on at Radabaugh Road in 1981. He remembered an access road that did have a temporary gate and that you could drive off the turnpike and back into the private property area. Once back past the gate, you would not be observable from the turnpike due to the trees and other vegetation in the area. FHP Captain Ken Buckner was contacted but advised he was not assigned to the area until after 1981. This investigator was unable to locate the two remaining troopers, Jerry Carrolls and James McKinnon. Dr. William Rodriguez, medical examiner, Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, Washington, D.C., was consulted and agreed with the comments of Mr. Howe that any human remains left in this environment, particularly a small body with open wounds, would have been quickly devoured and or removed from its original location. By 1983, the discovery of any remains would have been miraculous. Investigator Philip J. Mundy, C.C., Detective John Kearns, Hollywood PD. Enclosure 2. Statement, Larry Hoisington. January 29, 1998. Investigator Phil Mundy. Index to Statement of Detective Larry Hoisington, January 29, 1998. Page number 6 to 7. Group leaves police station at about 10:45 a.m. Describes seating arrangement. 8. Route taken from police station to Sears store in Plantation. Toole is not giving directions. 9. Arrival Sears Plantation and Toole's comments. Definitely not the store. 10. Group travels to Sears store in Fort Lauderdale. Toole tells them it's not the store. 11 to 14. Toole recognizes Hollywood Boulevard, I-95 exit, and begins to direct Detective Hoisington to Sears. Arriving at Sears, he mentions a post office, there was a small post office drive-through type, and says this looks like the Sears. Goes on to discuss the automotive center and how he exited through parking lot and turned right, westbound, on Hollywood Boulevard. And it's a 6-lane road, traveled and hit a curve, Presidential Circle, and then the turnpike. He narrates this while still parked in Sears' lot. 14 to 17. Relates discussion between Toole and detectives as to which exit from Sears Toole saw the victim exit. 17. Provides Toole's account of luring the victim to his car. 18. Recalls wig shop in mall. 19 to 20. Discussion of layout of interior of Sears. 21 to 22. Describes conversation and reason for exiting from I-95 onto Hollywood Boulevard and then traveling to Sears. 22 to 23. After lunch break, reenactment is resumed, beginning at Sears. Described Toole providing directions and commenting on landmarks. 24 to 25. Relates Toole explaining going into Service Plaza and roughing up the child. 25 to 29. Narrative of events during journey to Radabaugh roadsite. 29 to 33. Toole recognizes site and van stops. Relates his recollection of Toole's description of area, driving off turnpike, severing head with a machete-type instrument, and leaving the body. Head placed in car, then went 2 to 3 miles down road and walked on a wood dock and threw the head in the water. 33 to 39. Using photos, Detective Hoisington pinpoints specific areas. 41 to 46. Travel resumes north on turnpike. Toole makes comments about why he was going to keep the head and why he then decided to dispose of it. Toole has them stop at second site, and the party exits van, does a walk around, and Toole confirms site. 47. Explains he had no prior knowledge of these sites and reason for not submitting a report. 48 to 50. Additional questioning regarding circumstances causing stop at Radabaugh Road. 51. Trip back to Hollywood. Recalls some of Toole's comments. 54 to 55. Additional questioning of methods used in reenactments. 56. Recalls Toole saying he had gone to end of turnpike. 57. Hoisington recalls he thinks Toole referred to the weapon as a sword. See page 29 to 33. This is going to be a statement in regard to State Attorney Office Investigation Number 96-02-262. It will be a statement of Detective Larry Hoisington, as given to State Attorney Investigator Philip J. Mundy of the 17th Judicial Circuit, and the statement is being taken at the Broward County Courthouse, room 630, City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida, on Thursday, January 29th, 1998, beginning at about 9:40 a.m. As an investigator with the State Attorney's Office, I have the authority to take a statement under oath, so I need you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the statement that you are about to give will be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
For the record, would you state your full name and date of birth?
Larry Robert Hoisington, Hoisington, badge number 0142, date of birth 11/6/50.
And you're employed by the Hollywood Police Department?
That's correct.
And were you so employed back in October of 1983?
Yes, I was.
And what was your assignment at that time?
At that time, I was assigned to the Burglary Unit, Hollywood Police Department Detective Bureau.
And in 1983, did there come a time where you were assigned to do something in connection with the investigation into the murder of an Adam Walsh?
Yes, I think it was on a Friday, October the 21st, 1983. I was contacted by Deputy Chief Hessler, Hessler, and advised that I was going to be a driver of a vehicle that they had borrowed from J.M. Pontiac.
And did he tell you what you were going to do?
At first he just told me that I was going to go to Perry Airport and pick up a couple of detectives along with a suspect in the Adam Walsh case and bring them back to headquarters.
Did he tell you the suspect's name?
No, sir, he did not.
Did there come a time when you learned it?
Much later, yes.
And it turned out to be who?
O'Toole.
Is that Ottis Toole?
Ottis Toole.
Prior to that date, did you have anything to do with the investigation of Adam Walsh's murder?
On the initial day or day after the incident, I think it was that afternoon of the incident, the whole detective bureau was assigned to answer phones and do lead sheets on phone calls coming in. Other than that's basically all I had done, just answer phones.
So in October of 1983, would it be fair to say that you didn't really have a working knowledge of the case?
No, not at all.
Okay. The lead detectives at that time, that would have been Detectives Hoffman and Hickman.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, why don't you just begin to tell me what occurred on Friday, October 21st, 83?
On the 21st at approximately 8:40 hours, myself and Detective Leo Sokol, Soccol, went to Perry Airport, which is located in Pembroke Pines, to await the arrival of a small airplane that was coming in, being flown by one of, I think he was still a police officer for us, and it's supposed to have Hickman, Hoffman, and another detective from another agency, along with the suspect. We were told to wait there when the plane arrived to just gather the people and bring them to police headquarters directly from the airport.
Now, at the airport, after the people get off the plane and get into your van, where did they put the suspect Toole?
Toole sat in the front right passenger seat. If I remember right, Hickman sat either directly behind me in a captain's chair or over in the passenger side captain's chair. And the other detective, I can't recall his name, from another agency. He sat in the very back couch-like area.
Okay. And this was an unmarked vehicle?
It was a high-topped conversion-type van, unmarked, like a conversion-type van, fancy conversion-type van.
And total number of passenger capacity in that van was what?
I believe probably 7. Let's see, it had 4 captain's chairs and the couch in the back. So you could probably put 3 on the couch if you had to, and the 4 in the captain's chairs.
So when you leave the airport, what route did you take and where did you go?
I left the airport and went down Pembroke Road, straight down eastbound to, I believe, Park Road, and then took Park Road North to the police station, and pulled into the parking lot on the west side by our gas pumps.
Taking that route, you would not have been on Hollywood Boulevard, correct?
That's correct. If I recall, I was told to take that route by either the major in charge at that time, which was a captain at that time, or by one of the deputy chiefs, not to let him see the Sears, which was directly across the street from our...
Which is what I was getting at. You didn't take Hollywood Boulevard, and then when you came up Park Road, you would have been traveling northbound, correct?
That's correct.
And pulled into the police station. Doing that, you would not have been able to see the Sears store?
If you were looking, you could see it. I mean, you'd have to look hard to see it at that time. There's a Sears Automobile Center that sat right on the corner, and then the Sears store sat behind it. So, yes, you could see it, but where I turned in, the entrance I turned in was probably, I'd say, 300 feet south of Hollywood Boulevard, so you'd have to have really looked through to see it.
And you didn't slow down or stop or anything?
No. I just pulled right in the parking lot and pulled right into our... We have what we call a sally port, where you can pull inside the building. I pulled right in there so everybody could get out.
And when you pulled in there, being that close to Sears, nobody made any statement about that Sears location?
Not that I heard. No, sir.
Okay. So when you get to the police station, what happens there?
We go up to the detective bureau, which is on the 3rd floor. If I recall right, O'Toole was taken into a conference room, the detective bureau conference room, along with Hickman and Hoffman and myself and Sokol were taken into another room. I think it was a lieutenant's office at the time, and briefed on what we would do the rest of the day once they had finished briefing him or talking to him.
That probably took a little while, but you weren't involved in that?
No, I was not.
And then, did there come a time when you had more contact with Ottis Toole?
Yes, that same day, I believe, at approximately 10:45, we all re-entered the van, and I was given instructions to take the suspect along with the detectives to a Sears store in Plantation to see if he could view, the Sears, if he could pick out the right store. And I was told to take him by, at the time I recall, 3 Sears stores that we were supposed to take him to. One in...
Let me interrupt you for a second. When you get back in the van at this time, you're driving. Where's Toole sitting?
In the right front passenger seat.
And who's sitting behind you?
Behind me, if I recall, Hickman, I think, was sitting directly behind me.
And behind Toole?
I believe Hoffman was sitting behind Toole on the passenger side.
And in the back bench seat, do you remember who was sitting back there?
That detective again, from out of our jurisdiction. I think his name was Terry? I'm not sure. And Sokol.
Detective Terry, matter of record, he was accompanying Toole at the time. So is that a total of 6 to 7 people?
I believe so, yes.
And everybody was in plain clothes, I assume?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, when you leave the police station, which route do you take from there, as best you can remember?
I really don't recall. I know
I'm concerned mostly with how you exit the police station, because realizing that the Hollywood Sears is directly across from the police station.
I don't want to swear. I believe we went to Park Road, westbound on Hollywood Boulevard, out to, University and up that way. But I don't recall if we did how... I'm trying. I can't remember.
If you took that route, a straight shot out on Hollywood Boulevard and then north on University?
That's correct, I believe. Yes.
That would have taken you back past the airport, correct?
Yes, it would have.
And you're en route to Sears and Plantation?
That's correct.
From when you leave the police station going westbound, do you recall Toole making any comments?
Not at that time, no.
And what were your instructions at this time?
To let him view a Sears store or a couple of Sears stores and see if he could pick out the proper Sears store that Adam was abducted from, that he alleged that he took, the kid from.
Now, at this point in time, Toole is not directing you where to go, is he?
No, he is not. I'm doing the driving and not really even saying anything to him, talking to him.
And you didn't know what he had been told, did you?
No, did not. There was conversation between Hickman, Hoffman, and Toole.
Do you recall what that was about?
Not really, no. I think they were asking him just different things about, the case and everything.
Nothing to do with the location?
No, not yet.
So I guess there comes a time when you arrive at the Sears Plantation store.
Yes, we arrived there. I don't remember which entrance we came into, but we arrived there about, I guess, 11:30 a.m. I drove around the Sears store and the mall itself to get different views. I'd park, stop for a minute, let him look around, then drive to a different location, stop, let him look around, and at that time he was saying, this does not look like the store at all, doesn't look like the location, doesn't look like the store, there's nothing that looks familiar.
Did he mention anything specifically about that store?
He said something, if I recall right, that he had thought that there was an automotive center, close by where he'd abducted Adam from, and that mall there, he didn't see where the automotive center was familiar with the one that, he had seen. And also, I think he had said something about, I don't know if it looked like a 2-story building or what, but there was something else that he didn't like. He said definitely it wasn't the store.
Okay, and then what happened after that?
If I remember right, we then, again, I'm going back quite a few years, I thought we went to the Sears store located in Fort Lauderdale, which is on Federal Highway and I think Broward or Sunrise.
Sunrise.
And we went to that Sears store, and again, he said that didn't look the store neither. I then remember getting on I-95.
Let me stop you. That Sears store on US 1, as I recall, that one did have an automotive center, didn't it?
Yes, it does.
Did he, make any comments about that?
No, he just said that the store didn't look like the same layout, didn't look the same store.
The parking lot there is much smaller, correct?
I believe so, yes. And it's right in between a couple major roads, too, I think.
Right.
And he said it didn't look like it at all.
Okay, did he know where he was?
No, did not. To me, he didn't seem like he knew where he was at.
As you were traveling around, he didn't make any comments about recognizing any land sites, or...
Not at that time. After we left the Fort Lauderdale Sears store, I got on I-95 and was going southbound. That's the first time that he ever mentioned that anything looked familiar.
What did he say? If you remember.
As we were going southbound on 95, I think we just crossed over Johnson Street and approaching Hollywood Boulevard. He mentioned something like, this is starting to look familiar, this looks familiar here. As we got right to Hollywood Boulevard, and as I started exiting off Hollywood Boulevard, he said, yeah, I think this is the exit I took. The Sears store should be over here to the right somewhere. As I came down the ramp, coming to 95, I was going very slowly, because he was like, as you're going, he's thinking, as you're traveling. So I traveled very slowly. He said something about the Amtrak station. Yeah, this looks really familiar. I'm pretty sure this is the road here.
Right.
I then got on Hollywood Boulevard, and again he said this road looks familiar. As I'm going to the Sears, and he says, up here somewhere not too far, a mile or so is the Sears, I think, if it's the right place. I went westbound on Hollywood Boulevard, and at that time there were 2 entrances off Hollywood Boulevard that you could pull into the Sears parking lot. One was further east than the other one. There was 2 between Park Road, from Park Road to right here. So I turned into the first one and went down around the back side of the mall, which would be the east side of the mall, and I went around that way. As I turned around the north side of the mall building, I think there was a Publix there at that time. As I turned to go around that way and started going westbound for about a couple hundred yards before I had to go make a left to go south again towards the Sears, he stated this looks familiar. If I remember right, he said something about he thought he remembered the post office there. There was a little post office there at the time. It wasn't really a post office. It was a drive-through with machines where you put your money in and get stamps, and it had on both sides you could drive up and drop your mail in. If I remember right, he thought that looked familiar. As we approached the Sears store, there were two entrances. One was by the garden center, and one was further south towards the police department. He stated that this looked really familiar, so I pulled over and stopped and I parked, and it's hard to say, probably 5-10 minutes, we just sat there. At that time, Hickman and Hoffman talked to him, said, is this a location? He says, I'm pretty sure it is. They asked him which door. I think he told them which door he thought the child had come out of. If I remember right, he said that Adam was sitting on a bus bench when he first saw him. So he parked his car and got out and walked up to him. They were pretty sure, he was pretty sure of the location.
You would have been parked on the west side of Sears, and the road that would have been parallel would have been Park Road, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And you're north of the police station?
North of the police station. Probably at that time, if I remember right, I was parked, I believe, right next to the garden center, which would be the north door by package pickup, right in there, I believe, where I parked. Pretty close to it. Because he was talking, if I remember right, he was talking, pointing at the post office, saying, then pointing at the garden center, and then, describing the whole situation.
Now, when you got there and parked, and you say Hickman and Hoffman were talking to him, why, if anything, do you recall of that conversation?
Not much. Basically, what I got out of the conversation was that they were asking him, he was saying, this is the store, and they were just trying to clarify, are you sure this is the store? Which door did he come out of? What bus bench did he sit on? The post office thing, like I said. I remember the post office thing. I even think he even knew that there was an automotive center that you had to drive by as you got to Hollywood Boulevard. He said something about, I'm pretty sure that the automotive center, which I think he could probably see from where we were sitting, but he was pretty sure that you had to drive right by the automotive center to get to Hollywood Boulevard. And he knew that he said he made a right, and he said there was from where we were sitting, that we were probably, a good 2 city blocks from Hollywood Boulevard. And he was saying that, yeah, when you get there, you make a right, and it's a 6-lane road. Then you go down, you hit a curve, and then the turnpike's that way a few miles. And this is all before we even got to the parking lot, to the actual Hollywood Boulevard,
When he's pointing out the park, bus bench, and the exit doors of Sears, I think you mentioned something about he told the detectives which door he saw the child come out of?
Yeah, if I recall right, there was when they were talking to him, from what I was, like I said, I don't know much about the case, but I think they were saying that they thought Adam had come out of one door, and he was saying he came out of another door, and when he walked over to the bus bench, and they were trying to say, are you sure it wasn't this door, or was it that door, or which door was it? He was trying to tell them, no, it was this door here, the closest one to us.
Which door was he referring to?
I think he was referring to the door further north, and they were referring to the door further south, towards Hollywood Boulevard.
Now, on the Park Road side to Sears, the garden center's on that side, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I've got some photographs. Maybe we can look at them. This photograph, which is marked photograph number 3, and for the record, what we're using here is the Adam Walsh photo file, and this photograph of the Hollywood Sears is photo 3, with photograph that's on the Park Road side?
Yes, it is. That's the west parking lot of the Sears Mall.
And this would be this photograph, somebody would be looking sort of in a northeasterly direction to take the photograph?
Yes, they would, sir. Yes, sir.
And you recall approximately where you people were parked?
Yeah, I'd say probably right by this light pole here, or maybe the third. No, probably the second light pole right in here, right down by the garden center.
I was going to say, that puts you right near the garden center.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And so you'd be looking at Sears and have a view of the entire side of it. Now, this picture doesn't really show it clearly. Do you know which door from this picture he was insisting he saw the child come out?
Yeah, this door here, the one that's on this picture, it'd be to your left, all the way up here by the garden center, towards the garden center. The garden center's here, so it'd be this door here.
So basically it looks like it's the second entrance if one is walking northbound along the Sears store.
That's correct.
There's one entrance and then a second entrance?
Right. He was saying that the boy exited the door here and went to a bus bench, which was supposedly right in here at the time.
Towards the garden center.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And the bus bench was there?
I don't recall if it was at that time or not. I believe... I'm not really certain.
Okay. Now, you said something about the detectives were, I don't know if insisting's the right word, but questioning him as to which door?
That's correct.
The boy came out. Do you remember what the detectives were saying?
No, just basically, because he was saying the door, he was saying... They were saying, you sure it wasn't this door here? And he was saying, no, it...
Which door were they referring to?
They were pointing to the door, which is the first door, right here, the one further south.
The south door, and that one's further away from the garden center?
That's correct.
But he insisted that they were incorrect and that it was the other door.
That's correct.
Did he go into any detail as to that you overheard and recalled as to what happens after the boy comes out of the store?
Not really. All I remember is him saying that he parked his vehicle and exited and walked up to the boy. I think he said that he told the boy... He told a couple of different versions, but the one I can remember in the van at that time, I think, was that he had candy or some kind of goodies in the car to try to entice him back to the vehicle. And he struck up a conversation with him, saying, look, I got this and I got that, to get him back to the vehicle. And he was saying that he didn't struggle with him, that the boy voluntarily walked to his car and got in.
Did the detectives seem to take that story at face value?
I really don't recall about that part, if they did or not.
Do you recall if they asked him if he had gone into the store?
I'm not certain, but I think they did. If I recall right, he said no, that the furthest he went was underneath the overhang to the bus bench.
You're pretty familiar with the store and the mall itself at that location, Hollywood Boulevard?
I guess somewhat.
And I'm talking about in 81.
Yeah, somewhat, again.
In 1981, if you remember, was there a wig shop in that mall anywhere?
As far as I remember, there was. It was in the mall area itself, and it was over by... It wasn't Walgreens, it was in the mall itself. When you went through Sears, it was to the left down by... I forget, it was like a deli little place, and it wasn't a Walgreens, but it was another one of those stores that went out of business, like a 5 and 10 cent store. It was a big one. I can't remember the name of it. Woolworths. It was right on that, over there, close to that. There was at least the one.
And when we say it's a wig shop, was it a shop that appeared to you, I don't imagine you used it, but did it appear to you that it was strictly a wig shop, or was it a combination of perhaps wigs and something else?
It looked like, if I remember right, it was a combination. They had the wigs in the front window. It wasn't a very large store, and then they had maybe 1 or 2 chairs in there for them to do whatever they do, Mostly it was wigs, if I remember right.
Did you go into that mall frequently, on or off duty?
A couple of times a year, probably 2 or 3 times a year, maybe.
Okay. The Sears store back in July of 1981, as you know, Adam Walsh was abducted on July 27th. Had you been in the store any time around that date?
Not that I recall, no.
What about the day he was abducted? Did you have occasion for any reason to go over to the store?
No, I didn't.
Would you then not be familiar with the layout of where the toys were and the lamp department, the video game that he was supposedly playing or waiting to play?
I knew... No, I don't recall. I remember as soon as you walked in the north door here, if I remember right, as soon as you walked in, that was clothing. If you went straight in about 50 or 60 feet, there were shoes. I remember down here, if you walked in, I believe that was tools and stuff down there, but I don't really recall...
So the door, and we're referring again to photo number 3, the door that Toole says he saw the boy come out of, that door, if you enter it, it takes you into the tool department?
Yeah, when you walked in it, you went to the left, that was the tools. If you went to the right, it was, it did have video games and stuff there, and if you went straight to the left, there was a customer service, and furniture to the right of that, and lamps, yeah, right there. So yes, that door there. The other door, when you entered it, if I remember right, was as soon as you walked in it was closed to the right, and if you kept walking, there was an aisle there that had... no, it didn't. I'm sorry. The popcorn and candy was the next one. I can't remember, and there was clothes. Okay, kids' clothes, men's clothes. If you kept walking further, go to the ladies' clothes and stuff.
So the door that Toole was referring to is the door closest to the garden center and the video games?
That's correct. The video games were to the right, and to the left, I think, was the tools and garden center and all that stuff.
And that door would have been the closest also to the lamp department?
Yes, it would have. If you kept walking straight ahead, it was probably maybe 100 foot straight in, then you'd come to the lamp department. Not quite that far.
Did Toole indicate where he parked on that day?
Not that I recall, no. I'm sure he did, but not that I recall that he told me.
So after you visit the Hollywood Sears store and he's identified it as the store he abducted the child from, what's the next thing that happens?
I believe we went back to headquarters for lunch.
Did he make any comment about the police station being so close to the store?
No, not that I recall.
Up to this point, nothing's being recorded, either audio or video, correct?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And any questioning that's done to Toole is mostly by the two Hollywood detectives, Hickman and Hoffman?
That's correct.
And up to this point, is anybody directing Toole in any fashion as to where to go, where to turn?
Not that I can see from me driving. You know, watching the road and paying attention to him, I didn't hear any... Nobody told him, you know, Larry, go here, go there, do this and do that. I was under the impression from our chief that he wanted me to just try to do it, you know, ad-lib it, not let anybody tell me, you know, drive here and stop, drive there and stop, anything like that.
When you came south on 95, you mentioned something about crossing Johnson and Toole saying something, things are familiar. How did you come to turn off onto Hollywood Boulevard?
He was saying this looks familiar, and as I was slowing down, because he was saying, yeah, this looks really familiar, I was going to exit the exit, and if he didn't say this was it, I was going to get right back on and keep going south. But because of the train track, and because of him saying this looks familiar, and then when he told me I think the Sears is up here a couple miles on the right, that's why I turned there. I mean, he didn't say, turn here, you know, this is where it's at. He was like... I mean, it's hard to explain how he was. He was like really vague, you know. He would, you know, the way he was talking. This looks like it, you know. This looks familiar. Yeah, I think I remember this. So that's why I slowed down and come off. And when he said, "I think Sears is up here," that's why I turned and went up Hollywood Boulevard.
And then apparently you guys go back to the police station. There's a break in the action, so to speak.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And when's the next time you have contact with Toole?
I don't know if it was that day or the next day that we took the trip up to north on I-95 on the Turnpike. I'm sorry, I guess it was after lunch. I'm not sure about what time. 1:30, like I say, probably an hour later. We went back to the Sears Mall parking lot again and let him view it again.
Now, is the seating arrangement the same?
I believe so, yes. I don't recall exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was. I thought it was basically the same most of the trip, but he definitely was in the front again. From the front, he had a better view of everything, so that's why he wanted him in the front. Because the captain's chairs, if you're sitting in the back two seats, all you're looking at is you have to look through, like, between the two passengers, drivers, and passenger seat to see anything. So we put him in the front seat. If I remember right, we went back to the Sears Mall again. I parked this time a little bit further north, right across from the post office this time, so we could get a better view. This way here, from where he was sitting, he could see the package pickup area. He could see directly to our right would be the post office, and he could see all the way to Hollywood Boulevard. And the reason for this was to let him, again, see the location, see if he was sure of the location, and he still was. My instructions then were to let him try to direct me from that location to the location where allegedly that the body was left. So I went there and let him tell me, go ahead and drive straight. When you get to Hollywood Boulevard, make a right. As we made right, he mentioned something about going around a big bend in the road, and when I approached, back then it was called Academy Circle. That's where Riverside Military Academy used to be. It's right in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard. Well, it still does, but the school's not there, and you could make a complete circle if you had to. When we approached that, if I remember right, he remembered the circle, he remembered the school, and even mentioned that there was some kind of, academy or school or something. After we went...
Did he mention that before he saw it, or when he came...
No, when we come up to it, yeah, he says, I remember the school, I remember this building, or school, or whatever he thought it was. As we were going around the circle, once I went around the circle, he told me to make a right, and he says, I think I asked him that time, I said, how much, where do I have to go now? He said, just keep going down this road and hit the turnpike. As we were driving, I don't recall where, somewhere along the Fashion Center or going that way, he thought that the turnpike was coming up close. And when I got on the turnpike, he directed me onto it. When I pulled up to get the ticket, he says, yeah, I remember getting a ticket, the toll booth. When I got there, he directed me to go north on the turnpike. As we were traveling up the turnpike, we were discussing things, and I forgot who was asking, how Adam was acting and everything, and at a couple points he says, yeah, Adam was crying for his mommy, so I had to pull in here, or I had to pull off here, talk to him, and then as we went by a plaza, he stated to me, he says, yeah, I had to pull in one of these places here and, rough the kid up, really get rough with him.
Whereabouts would this be?
I don't remember if it was the first plaza or the second plaza that we went by. It was one of the plazas.
Upon entering the turnpike from Hollywood Boulevard?
Yes, as we're going northbound.
Going north?
There was... I don't recall which plaza. There was a plaza, and as we went by it, he said, I had to go in one of those places and rough the kid up. I don't recall if we pulled into it or not. I don't really know if we pulled into the plaza or not, or if we went to the next plaza and pulled in, but he was sure that he had roughed him up and had to get, pretty rough with him.
Did he go into any detail about what he did at that point to the child?
I'm sure he did, but not with me. He didn't... Again, I was just driving and taking directions from him. I wasn't really interrogating or asking, what all happened. But he was turning sideways, talking to the guys in the back, saying different things, but I can't recall everything.
And to your knowledge, this second trip after lunch, nobody's recording either audio or video? What's going on, right?
No, not at all.
Were the detectives taking notes when they were questioning him?
I assume they were. I mean, they had papers in their laps and things. I don't recall if they were or not.
When you left the police station after the lunch break, did you somehow gather that he knew he was supposed to take you guys to the place where he supposedly disposed of the body?
Yes.
You got that impression?
From the get-go, yes, I did.
And how was he behaving? Was he cooperative, or did he appear like he was trying to maybe bluff you out, or, you know?
My impression was that he was cooperating, that he was... Some things he'd answer, and other things he would just drift on to other things about, you know, like I'd hear them ask him a question about one thing, then he'd drift on to something else. Like, we were driving down the turnpike, they'd be asking him something, and a car would pass us, and he'd go, oh, I'd kill that lady there. And then he'd carry on, you know, oh, I'd stalk her, I'd follow her, and I'd kill her. Or, you know, we passed a hitchhiker one time, and he all of a sudden started talking about, oh yeah, I picked up a hitchhiker one time in Texas, and took him out and killed him. You know, he was just like, he was a weirdo person to understand, you know. He was cooperating, and he was also bragging, and he was also probably making things up, you know, I'm not really sure. He was just constantly changing his demeanor as to what he talked and everything, what he said. Like, I said you'd be talking to him at one time, and he'd just all of a sudden switch into a different path of conversation. You'd be going, oh, where'd that come from, you know. But he was not cooperating, put it that way. And he was talking...
He was cooperating, okay. Now, from Hollywood Boulevard going north, you mentioned, I think, that you pulled into one of the plazas, stopped for a while, and then continued on, correct?
Right, for a very short time.
And, of course, it's quite a ride from Hollywood Boulevard up to mile marker 130 and 126. As you're going north, is he indicating that you should stop anywhere along the way?
No, we just kept looking for the spot. The whole time I kept telling him, you know, are you watching for the spot where you got off? And, you know, he's looking, but he's never saying anything about pulling over yet. He's saying, no, the only time I pulled over was into the rest area, quiet the kid down.
Did anyone you know question him as you were going north about any particular locations, you know? As you came up anywhere, did anybody say, well, how about this place? How about that place?
Yes, they did. Quite a few different locations. They asked, you know, does this look like it here? And he'd say no. We'd go by something else, maybe. Does this look it? No. Keep going. You know, we just kept riding.
What kind of locations were they that they were asking him about?
Different. I think like different locations that might have been cleared. Different bridges you might get off on. Different exits. Like he'd look up and say, no, this isn't it. Like smaller exits. They'd say, does this look like the exit here? No, this isn't. And then he'd tell you, no, there was no toll booth. There was no street lights. There was no, you know, no nothing. No waterway right here or stuff like that. He'll just say, no, this doesn't look like it. I'd slow down, but keep going.
And because, you know, I've driven it too, and it's a long way to this location. Did he ever indicate to you that it was going to be a long way?
He seemed like he knew as if there was... It took a while. The child was with him for some time, because he kept saying that for the longest time that the kid was okay, you know, there was no problem with Adam in the vehicle, that, you know, there was no... You know, they just... Whatever they did, talked, or whatever they did, they just traveled, and then I guess... After the lengthy drive, that's when Adam started saying, I want my mommy, I want my daddy, you know, stuff like that.
The plaza that you pulled into where he claims, you know, he had to rough the child up, do you remember what county it was in?
No, I sure don't.
Getting out of Hollywood Boulevard in Broward County, I think at that time there might have been a plaza in Pompano. I'm not really sure.
I'm almost certain it wasn't the first plaza, because I remember going by it and him saying, I pulled into some, you know, a plaza like that to quiet the kid down, and at that time I didn't want to make a U-turn back up because we were going to keep going, so I kept going. And if I remember right, the second one we went to, because of the way he said at the first one, I pulled into it and said, then, of course, they all look the same, except for different service stations. And I think he said, yeah, this is he didn't say this is the plaza, but he said, yeah, he definitely pulled into, a plaza like this. I think there's only 2 plazas the whole distance at that time to the mile marker. I don't remember, but, and he was, like I said, the first one, he mentioned it, and the second one we pulled in, he just said it was one of the plazas. And if I recall, he thought after the second plaza it wasn't too far to where he had to stop and kill Adam because he was getting so out of control.
So he keeps not identifying any of these places that he's being questioned about, so you continued north?
Right.
You don't make any stops at any places, do you?
No, I do not. I slowed down, and I might have even slowed down to the point where I go off on the shoulder, but I kept moving. I never stopped completely. I'd slow down and just let him look and see, and I might have pulled over to the shoulder and just slowed down to like 20 or 30 and let him see it, because, at 60 or 70, it's pretty hard to, see anything. So if they thought something looked familiar, I would slow down and pull over, and then just, continue on again.
So apparently there comes a time where you're approaching the Radabaugh Road overpass?
Yes, sir.
What occurs then?
As I'm going by, I can't recall now if I slowed down and pulled over, but as I'm going by, he states that as we're going by, he points and says that this looks like the spot there. I probably stopped, 300 foot past it by the time I could get stopped and get over to the shoulder. I stopped and they questioned him a little bit. You think that's it? Yes. I put it in reverse. I backed the van up to the spot.
We had to turn the tape over. Let's just backtrack a little bit here. You're approaching Radabaugh.
That's correct.
And you recall what point he says anything about this location?
I think as soon as we crossed into the bridge, or right at the bridge, at the overpass, he stated that this looks like it.
And is it at that point, because he said that you began to pull over and slow down?
Yes, that's correct. I pull over immediately, slow down as fast as I can. I think he's asked again, do you think that's it? He said, I think it was. So we back up down the shoulder of the road to about the bridge area, probably a little bit past the bridge, stop again, let him look. If I recall, they asked him after he said, yeah, this looks like the point, they asked him, what did you do? And he said, drove in through where the guardrail wasn't, and they asked him, how far down did you go? And I forgot what he told them, but he told them how far he drove in, and he says that's where he pulled in and took the boy out of the car, laid him down, and if I remember right, it was 2 or 3 strikes of the... I don't think he called it a machete, like he had a different name for it, but a machete-type instrument with a wood handle, and chopped off the boy's head. We then pulled in there, stopped, and got out, and let him look around, and he was familiar with the area from what he was saying. This looked like the area.
As he approached the Radabaugh overpass, did any of the detectives, anybody besides Toole, say anything about the location? Could this be it? Otis, is this it?
Not that I recall, no.
So the first indication is that after you pass it, he says something about it looks like the place?
That's correct, as we're passing.
When you stop there, he doesn't get out of the van right away?
Not immediately, no.
And we've been up there, you and I, and a couple of other people. The area right next to the turnpike, not too far back, let's say from the turnpike to where the guardrail would have been, is that the area? When we went back there a month or so ago, was it pretty much the same?
Yes, but it's grown up. Everywhere that there was rock and gravel, now there's, weeds and grass grown. But, yeah, it's basically the same.
But there was that wide asphalt road that leads back into the non-turnpike area. That road was pretty much the same?
Yes, sir.
When you're parked there, does Toole give any description of what's beyond the area where the guardrail would have been?
I don't recall. He knew, yes. Well, past the guardrail is where he said he pulled in, and he said there was like a big rock parking lot that he pulled in. He showed us. It's hard to say on tape, but he showed us with his hands and everything. I pulled down here and I parked here, and he showed us about where he took the body to and said he drug it to, and yes, he did. Yeah, he described, but he didn't say, past here there's water and past here there's orange groves and past. No, he didn't. A construction site or anything like that I recall. No. In 83, you weren't able to drive back in there, correct? No. You only could drive up to, no, I don't remember. I think you could drive back there. I think the guardrail was still down. I think you could drive back in there. I'm not certain.
Did you drive back in there?
I'm not really certain. I remember we walked back in there because he sat on a log in there, but I don't remember if we drove him back in there. I can't recall if we did or not.
So apparently there comes a time when everybody exits the van?
Yes, that's correct.
When you exit the van, tell me what happens then.
Okay. He was in leg shackles and handcuffs, so he couldn't walk too far. But we did walk him over to where it was only probably 30 foot from where we parked, to where he says he took the body to. And that's where he said that, if I remember right, that he laid the boy down and chopped off his head. He says he then drugged the body another few yards, 50 feet, no more than 50 foot, I think, into the brushes and covered it up with leaves and stuff. He then said that he brought the head back with him, put it in the rear passenger compartment of the vehicle behind the driver's seat on the floorboard, and then he said he drove off. And he told me, he said, I went 2 or 3 miles down and walked up on some kind of wood dock and threw the head out in the water.
Let's stay with this section for a minute. When you walk back into this area where he says he killed the child, we've got some photographs of were taken in December 1997, so the area's changed quite a bit. They're all numbered. Maybe by looking at them you can give me an idea of how far back you walked?
I'd say on photograph number 16, if you took where the pickup truck is parked and where the picture ends, would have been right over to the left, right in here somewhere. Right in here is where the pavement's at. Right over in there somewhere.
Okay, in this photograph we can see, what remains of the asphalt road.
Right.
In this picture number 16, we're looking, let me see, we're looking basically from the top of Radaball Road overpass, and we would be looking in a northeasterly direction. Do you agree with that?
Right, yes, sir.
So on this asphalt road,
see, over to where your thumb is at, over to the left over here, though, there's a bunch of trees. That's the furthest we went with him.
Okay, does he point out approximately where he actually killed the child?
Yeah, but it's not in any of these pictures. It'd still be over to your left a little bit more.
A bit further to the...
Yes.
West on that road?
West, yes.
See if we have anything better. All right. How about photo 18? Does that help? Because...
Yes, that's where the road ends. It'd be right over here. Right in these clumps, right over in this area.
Okay, just for clarification, and I'm the one that took these photographs, 18 is a photo that's being taken from up on top of Radaball Road, and it looks from south to north. I'm looking northbound, and the asphalt road ends because between 1983 and the time this photograph was taken, there was some excavation, which I've learned about, and so the asphalt road in the photograph we're looking at in 81, 83 would have continued from where this photograph shows it ending. It would have continued west into the turnpike.
Correct. That's correct. Yes, sir. Past the guardrail that was down.
So, what you're telling me, if I understand correctly, is that somewhere between the guardrail and where the asphalt road in photo 18 is, west of the asphalt road in photo 18 is somewhere where he claims he actually killed the child?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and...
Because, again, now, in 81 and 83, when this occurred, when we went there in 83, this was all through here. Of course, the asphalt road was there, and that was clear, but all around here was all trees and bushes and everything. It was large. There was no water right here, and, you know, this was all, like it is here, it was the same over here.
From interviewing people up there, I've learned that the area was a drainage canal or ditch that people that owned property had dug, and then it apparently comes, it comes north and south, then it cuts off, and then it seems to go east and west, and where the asphalt road ended, they apparently excavated that area as well, and so to the north side of the asphalt road, there was a lot of, from what they've told me, too, these people that work up there, it was a vegetated area.
Uh-huh.
And so it was somewhere back there that he claims he actually killed the child?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And then he takes the body off into the vegetated area?
Yeah, to the north of the asphalt road. He said he took the body back in there. If I remember right, it wasn't more than 50 foot. He said he drug it down in there and covered it. At the time, he told me, I don't know what he told everybody else, but he told me that he just covered up with leaves and stuff he had there, you know, that he could find around there.
And did you and the detectives walk back to where he claims he left the body with the leaves?
Yes, we did.
In 1983, shortly after these revelations by Toole, there was an extensive search of that area, and what we've got here are some photographs of the area of the Florida Turnpike, mile marker 126, which is Radabaugh Road, taken in October of 1983. Perhaps looking at these might be better to pinpoint where he says he killed the child, or he says he disposed of the body, perhaps not.
Yeah, this here looks like this is where the Turnpike Road is, right here. Oh, it's over that way.
The Turnpike? Oh, okay, we're looking at photo number 1 of the mile marker 126. This photograph is looking from...
Going back the other way.
East to way...
Okay, alright.
And if you look closely at the right center, you can see Radabaugh Road overpass.
Okay.
So where this piece of heavy equipment is on the asphalt road, on the access road, if you continued...
You'd go right through the guardrail.
And you'd come through the guardrail and out to the turnpike.
Okay, they look here, they're way in too far then.
Oh, okay, so he didn't really go back that far?
No. If I remember right, it would have been right, whatever that is there, right in this area here, back in that way, but I'd have to see a different, that doesn't look...
This is another photograph. We're looking at photo number 2. Again, you can see the Radabaugh Road overpass.
Yeah, that's closer. Yeah, so this looks like more like the area right in here.
To the right of the heavy equipment?
Yes, sir.
So actually we're talking about him disposing of the body on the north side of the access road?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Did he indicate how far into the wooded area or vegetated area, whatever you want to call it, that he went, or did you guys walk back there?
Yeah, I don't recall. It wasn't that far. I would have said no more than, definitely less than 100 feet, and I would think more like maybe 50 foot in, if that.
And when you were walking back in there, how was the earth? How did it feel underfoot?
Once you got past the away from the asphalt road and the, you know, like the rock that it had around there, it was pretty mushy, like swampy, wet, swampy type stuff with leaves and like a buildup of 8, 10, 12 inches of stuff, you know, where it was like a swamp. It's hard to explain. You don't sink into the water, you know. I don't recall my feet getting wet, but it was like mushy and stuff.
Now, he didn't indicate, from what you've told me, that he buried the body. He said that he covered it with leaves?
That's what he told me, yes, that he covered it with leaves, available material.
And also, when he goes back there, did he indicate where he actually killed the child?
I know it was outside the car, and if he did, I mean, I was just there, you know. He said a general area where he laid him down and chopped his head off, but I don't recall exactly where, though.
Do you remember if it was on the asphalt road or off the road?
I really don't recall. I don't want to say. I'm not really certain.
Okay, that's fine. And you also mentioned that when he was describing what he did, that he didn't use the word machete?
Right, yeah. He was... I can't remember what word he was using. He was calling it something else. God. I can't remember what he was calling it now.
If that comes to you, would you...
I sure will, yeah.
Interrupt and let me know. Now, again, there's nothing being recorded, either audio or video, right?
No, sir.
But obviously the detectives are questioning him about certain aspects of the crime?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Now that they are at the scene, they're questioning him a lot. And then after they question him, detectives will go in and search, and I stayed there with him because of he being handcuffed and leg cuffed, he couldn't walk.
Besides the detectives you mentioned, including yourself, were there any other police officers there that day?
Yeah, a trooper pulled up and wanted to know why we were there, and I remember, you know, discussing with him what we were doing, and I asked him for a piece of paper, because when you go back out the same exit you come on with the turnpike thing, you know, they'd question us, so he gave me, I think it's called a turnaround...
Yeah, turnaround ticket.
Slip, or something, and I also... while we were there, I asked him if he was familiar with the area, and he said yes, and he verified that he thought that this was the only place in the general area that he knew of that you could exit and get back on without paying a toll. I think if I recall, I don't know if he did that day or if he had arranged to help him the next day have a Department of Transportation official meet him at. Yeah, I don't think it was that day. I think he arranged to get somebody there.
Now, when you were there on the state with Toole, there were no other Hollywood police officers there besides Hickman and Hoffman, right?
That's correct.
And there was a Detective Terry?
Yes, sir, that's correct. And I believe, I'm not sure, Detective Sokol rode up with us that day or the next day. I'm not really certain.
Now, this all occurred on October 21st, 1983, correct?
That's correct.
Was there any searching done while you were there with Toole?
Very little. Very limited. They did, you know, walked in and just looked the best they could, you know, just a brief area of search. I don't think they were there that long. No more than an hour, I don't believe.
Okay, the only one searching would have been Hickman, Hoffman, Terry, yourself, and Toole?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That day, that actual day.
And after searching around there for a while, what's the next thing that happened?
I think we got back in the van, and somebody asked him about the head being found, where he left the head. We then went northbound, because he said he came out and went north with the head in the back. That's when he had told me about the head being in the back seat, and so we headed northbound. I asked him how far it was. If I remember right, he said, I think he said no more than 10 miles. As we're going northbound now again, he's telling me that, yeah, he was going to keep the head, and I'm asking him, why would you keep a head? He's telling me he was going to keep it for a souvenir, you know, as a remembrance. I think the people in the back seat were saying something differently about keeping it for a sexual thing or something, and that he was saying no. He was saying that he got scared, that when he had to get off the turnpike, he had to pay a toll, that he was afraid that somebody might see it, so that's why he said he stopped and threw it in the water. As I'm going northbound, I don't recall how far it was, maybe 3 or 4 miles, 2 or 3 miles, something like that. As I'm going northbound, he mentions to me, this looks familiar here. So I remember this time getting over on the shoulder and going very slowly. As we approached the location, he said, this looks like the spot. I believe at the time you could see the grass was cut and you could see like a wooden, I don't want to say a dock, but a wooden plank walkway or something. Looked like a regular walkway, but a wooden plank walkway. And he said, this looks like the spot here. He said, I stopped here, and I walked around that, and I threw the head in the water. Well, we stopped the car, we got out, walked over there, and he verified, this looks like the spot where I threw the head into. They questioned him, whatever. We got back in the van, and I don't know, it was quite some time later I found out that was where the head was found. I guess where they actually found the head in the general area.
You yourself didn't know that prior?
I had no prior knowledge at all.
As you were approaching that location, or for that matter, any time during the trip, do you recall if Toole ever described the area where the head was disposed of?
No, but I don't recall him saying that it was water or anything like that, but I do recall him saying it wasn't far from where he killed the boy and chopped his head off to where he threw it, but I don't recall him saying, too much detail about what was at that location. All I know is he had said that he was looking for a wooden walkway type thing, and that was it.
Okay, what do you mean he was looking for a wooden walkway?
When I don't recall if it was in the van or when I was sitting there talking to him while everybody was searching, when, he told me he took the head and he went 10 miles or less than 10 miles and threw the head in the water. He had told me at that time that, if I recall, he had walked on some kind of, like a bridge or a walkway or wooden, dock or something, but other than that, he never said anything.
Did he say he told you that before you got to the location?
Yes. I can't recall if he told me that in the van or while we were sitting there talking, but he had mentioned something about he had walked out on something and threw the head into the water, wooden something or other.
When you arrived at the location and he identifies it, does everyone exit the van?
Yes, we all exit. We all walk out onto the dock area, whatever it was. It wasn't a dock. It was something, I guess, for maybe flood control district people to walk out and check things or something, and trying to remember. I thought there was some point of interest that was on the deck itself, something made out of aluminum or something. He might have said that looked familiar. I can't recall that, either around or aluminum something that they were talking, questioning him about the, and he said that that's his reference point, that he remembers. This wood dock with that, whatever it was, but I don't know what it was. I wasn't conversation.
Did he reenact at that time how he disposed of the head?
Yes, he did.
Can you describe that?
He said that he just got it, took it, and just threw it into the water with his hands.
Did he say how far out?
No. He didn't say if he held it by the hair or not. Not that I heard.
When you had never been to that location before, had you?
No, never.
When you got out and, you had an opportunity to walk down towards the water, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. What did you think that body of water was? What was your impression?
I thought it was like maybe just a little canal. Just didn't look, that deep or anything. Just looked like a canal of water that ran the length of the turnpike, north and south, and it just looked like it was water. It wasn't, it had a lot of lily pads and stuff in it, but I don't remember seeing too much.
Could you see the canal itself running north and south?
Not that I recall, no.
So how did you know there was a canal there?
I just saw the water itself, I never saw the canal. You mean when I'm driving down the road?
No, when you got out and everybody walks out and he says, this is where I disposed of the head, I'm trying to get a feel for what your impression was that water was, and, whether or not you knew what it was.
Yeah, no, I still don't know what it is. I didn't see, per se, a canal. I didn't see... Like, you can see the pictures now. You can see that canal running all... I didn't see that.
You didn't know that?
No.
And from where you were standing, you couldn't see the north and south end of that canal?
No, I did not. I could only see what I thought was maybe just like a swampland with maybe knee-high water, there. I didn't see a regular canal or, like a boat could go down or anything like that.
Okay, at this point, Toole is still in a, shall we say, cooperative mode?
Very much so, yes.
And nobody's doing anything to anger him or insult him or anything of that nature?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I had... my whole career, I've always... I guess bring yourself down to whatever their talking is. And, I'd, joke with them, say, oh, hell, there's nothing wrong with this, I do that too, or, kill my wife or kill my kids. Once in a while, I feel like doing the same thing, so I could get, a relationship going with him.
Sure.
So I just, we just chit-chatted, that's all, about stupid little things.
And then apparently, I guess everybody gets back in the van and heads back to Hollywood?
Yes, we do. And I believe, if I remember right, on the way back, we stopped back at that location again. Just let him get his reference, saying, do you think it was the right distance and everything's, right.
When you say that location, do you mean the Radabaugh Road?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Just for a brief few minutes, we stopped there and just let him say, yeah, now do you see how far it was from where the head was found back to here? Does that seem like the right amount of time to you and the right distance, and, converse with him a little bit longer?
Do you remember if, when you were at the site where the head was, did anybody confirm to him that in fact was where the head was found?
Not that I know of, not that I heard, no. Like I said, if they did, I didn't hear it because I didn't know.
All right, I understand that you wouldn't have been, hearing every word that people are saying. I understand that. That's what I mean, if you heard that.
Not in my presence, no. Not in my presence. I don't think...
Did you ask? Do you remember if you asked the detectives, hey, is this the place?
No, because I was under strict instructions from the chief not to, this isn't my case. I'm just driving. Just stay out of it and just drive, and don't do reports, don't ask questions, don't interject anything, just.
Did there come a time when you learned that was, in fact, where the head was found?
Yes, I don't think it was that day. I think it was the day of the big dig, when they were going out for the big dig, which I wasn't a part of, where you have all the equipment and everything. That's when I found out, oh, they're all going out to dig because it looks like the location, because the head was found where he said it was, and, and all that, and I'm like, okay,
Okay, so... You head back to Hollywood, you make that stop there for a little... You didn't... When you were going back to Hollywood and you stopped at Radabaugh Road, did you stop on the west side of the canal? The southbound side?
Yes.
And so you didn't get out of the van?
No. At that time, we just stopped there and let him just look for a few seconds, just to refresher. Does this look like are you sure you think that's the spot? And, do you think that's the right location from where the head was found? And just... try and clarify certain things that, then we continued on. Okay, let me get clear on something if I can. If you recall, when you're northbound, you're approaching Radabaugh Road. If I understand correctly, you actually go under the underpass? You're continuing north? Uh-huh.
And it's after you go under the underpass that at some point he tells you this looks like it might be the place?
Yeah. I would say, I don't think it was before. If it was before, it was, seconds before. But it would be probably as we went under it. That's when he said, this looks familiar, and he pointed to the right, and that's when, I started slowing down, because it took me, if I remember right, if you look in one of the photographs there's a pole quite a ways down. It was about in there where I stopped and you couldn't, when you turned around, because I was turned around to look too, you'd have to really look to see, and say, oh, let me back up.
So when you pass the overpass, you're traveling at a normal speed of, what, approximately
55, 60, I think it was, probably.
And so he makes this comment, and you pull over and come to a stop?
Yes.
And at that speed, it takes you a couple hundred feet?
At least, I'd say, sure. I didn't slam the brakes on, just let up on the gas and pulled over as fast as I could.
And then to look at that, was he telling you to back up, or did you just know you had to?
I just backed up, mainly. I backed up so he could look at it, so I backed up, I'd say. I think if I remember right, backed up almost underneath the bridge, and let him look. And we sat there for, whatever, minute, 30 seconds.
Was he saying anything while you were backing up?
Not that I recall. I remember after I stopped, he said, yeah, this looks like it. And after I backed up and stopped, he looked out and said, yeah, this looks like it. And that's when they asked him more questions about, well, how far back in did you go? When you go back in there, what's there? And stuff like that.
Do you recall if he was able to answer correctly any of those questions about what was back in there?
Yeah, he did know that he had to go through a guardrail. If I recall right, he did know that it was paved, somewhat paved and rocky, hard back in there, because he didn't get stuck or anything, that he could go back in there and turn around. I don't recall if he could describe the area, I don't remember him saying that it's marshy and mucky or that it's anything like that. Don't recall any of that, no, but I do recall him saying that the entranceway looked like the right one, that he did go in there. I'm trying to recall. I could have swore he said he went in there and maybe went to the guardrail and turned around and come out, but I can't recall for sure. As a matter of fact, no, I know he did. Yes, he did too, because he said he went in there, pulled up, took the body, took the boy out, and then he backed. When he left, he backed up, because he showed me how he did it with his hands. Yeah, he backed up here and went out there, so, because he didn't, we were trying to see if he went down the road further, thinking that maybe he didn't, not have to get back on the turnpike, but he was saying no, that he just turned right around there. He didn't go investigating, where the road led to or anything.
So then after you make the brief stop on the southbound side of the turnpike, it's just a question of driving back to the police station?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And I would assume the detectives probably continued to converse with him from time to time about the crime?
Yeah, and so did I, just, talking.
You spoke to him too?
Yes, I did. On the way back, we struck up a conversation about other people that he had killed. I think a niece or something that he allegedly killed. We were just talking, like that. And he mentioned a couple times about the boy again, killing Adam, saying that, if I remember right, he told me at one time, he says, of all the people I've killed, there's only one that I regret, and that was Adam. He regretted killing Adam. Other than that was basically...
How did he refer to this child when he spoke of the child?
If I remember right, the boy is how he kept saying. The boy, Of all the people I killed, I wish I wouldn't have killed the boy. If I remember right, I'm not certain. I don't think he ever said Adam. I think it was just the boy.
Now, we'll finish up with this. I guess it's just then a straight drive back to the police station?
Yes, that's correct.
And what happens there?
I just go back, pull back into the Sallyport. I let them out, and I go park the van and give the keys back to the deputy chief.
And then that's it? You don't have any more to do with Toole?
No, nothing at all.
Did the detectives indicate to you whether they believe Toole?
No. Well, Hickman was the quiet type anyhow. As far as with the other detectives and Hoffman, I didn't get along with Hoffman that well, so I didn't discuss anything with him, ask him questions. they're the type, like, it was their case. I was in burglary, you know. It's like, you're in burglary, you just drive the van and shut up. You don't know anything. You're a burglary detective. You don't know what's going on. So I didn't ask anything. I didn't... They're not even the ones that told me about the head. You know, him picking out the point where the head was at. I had to ask. I forgot who I asked, but it wasn't them. If it was the right location, might have been the lieutenant or somebody, you know, saying, hey, by the way, where we went to the that second location, you know, was that where the head was found? I think somebody else told me, yeah, that was the correct location.
Okay. Did you have anything to do with the search of that area afterwards?
No, I wasn't there for the...
So that was your last contact with Toole?
Yes, that's correct.
The day you had contact with Toole, there wasn't an extensive search made, you know, the Radabow Road area where he claims he killed the child, and it was just kind of a walkthrough type thing?
That's correct, yes, sir.
At that location, to your recollection, did anybody mistreat Toole, either verbally or physical, or...
No, sir, not at all.
Demean him in any fashion?
Not that I know of. No, sir, not that I heard.
Did you know if he was ever brought back again after that day?
I don't know.
You never saw him again?
No, sir.
I'm just going over some notes I made to make sure we're covering everything. The Turnpike Plaza, where he claims he pulled into, I know you don't seem real definite about which plaza it was. You never traveled back up there to try to figure out which one it was, did you?
Not with him, no.
I mean on your own?
Yes, I went there probably every time I went to Disney for the next 10 years. Went to the location where he said he left the body. I'd get out and walk around it. You know, don't ask me why, but I did. And I pulled into plazas and do different things. I just try to visualize what he told me and see different things, but not in an official capacity, no. Just like when I was going up there. I'd go to an arson school up in Ocala once a year, and when you're traveling by yourself like that, you know, I'd stop and get out and walk around and look and do different things.
Did he seem pretty sure about which plaza?
No. Well, no, not at all.
You really don't know?
No, I have no idea.
We don't really know, right?
No, I don't. No, I've stopped at both of them, sat there and tried thinking things out, and then drove on and different things, but I never...
That's pretty much it. About the only other thing, you know, these re-scene visits, you know, I've done a few myself, and when you're having somebody try to direct you somewhere, it's a little difficult, I understand. On this revisit, if I can use the term, did anybody suggest or in any way indicate to Toole which way he should go at any time?
Not that I heard. Not that I'm aware of.
And you didn't purposely drive in a direction that you knew that he had to have gone?
No, I didn't. If he said make a right, I made a right. If he said go north, I went north. The only time that I can recall making a turn without him saying turn here was when we were coming down I-95 looking for Sears. And we approached Hollywood Boulevard. He said, this looks familiar. As I slowed down, and he said, looked at the train station, looked, and he says, this looks like the road. He didn't tell me turn off here. That's the only time I can recall that I turned off without him telling me to. And, of course, at the Hollywood Mall, when I, turned in the parking lot and came around the back side, I didn't want to go to the front side, so in those turns, he told me everything to do that I recall.
So, in your opinion, and you were driving the vehicle, do you feel that it was a pretty fair reenactment and that every place you visited was pretty much pointed out by Toole based on his own recollection?
Yes, except for, like I said, the Hollywood Boulevard, when I turned in the mall. Other than that, everything, and even that, get off at Hollywood Boulevard. Only reason I got off there, because he said it looked familiar, and he said that the mall, that the Sears was up to the right, just a little ways. That's why I exited there.
I'm curious, you went to the Broward Mall in Plantation, you went to the one in Fort Lauderdale. Did he ever say anything to indicate that he thought you guys were trying to trick him?
Not that I heard. No, sir.
Just that this wasn't the one.
Right.
Did you have to take them back to the airport?
I don't recall.
Okay.
No, I don't recall. I know I took the van back to J.M. Pontiac. I really don't recall.
Do you remember if anybody... These are just some questions that are coming in my mind before we end the statement. Do you remember if anybody asked him where he went after he disposed of the head?
Yes. If I recall right, he just went to the end of the turnpike, which I think was Wildwood.
Wildwood?
And exited there, and I don't recall where he went to from there. If I remember right, he just went to the, again, I didn't think, I know they were asking why he was in South Florida. I know they were asking him different questions. I can't remember all the answers that he was giving them. It was just, as I'm driving, I hear them talking, well, why'd you come to Florida? Why were you here? And why were you in Hollywood? And why'd you go back? And, why'd you leave Jacksonville? Or, wherever he was. I remember them asking questions, but I didn't, again...
When you were driving around in the Hollywood area with him, did he ever indicate that he had seen any of the locations before? I mean, before the abduction.
Not that I recall, no.
Did he ever mention a park? He ever say anything about a park?
No, not that I recall. I remember him remembering the Sears store, of course, and then the Riverside Military Academy, and the exit. Other than that, there wasn't too much familiar.
Did he make any comment about the airport?
No.
And nothing around the airport?
Now, you're talking about Perry Airport or Fort Lauderdale Airport?
Perry, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, not that I can recall.
Okay, is there anything else that you can think of that I haven't asked you about that, that you feel I should know about it?
Nothing that I can think of right now.
Still can't remember what term he used besides machete?
No. Sorry, cannot...
If it comes to you, give me a call, and I'll just either add it as a footnote or put it in a report or something like that.
I did know he was,
He didn't say machete?
No, because I remember asking what was it? A large knife? A sword? Wait a minute, I think it might have been a sword. He told me, I don't really recall, it might have been a sword. I don't know why that just popped up, but I think he might have said a sword type thing or something like that. I don't recall.
Do you remember the detectives trying to get out of him what it was he was talking about?
Oh yeah, most definitely, but I can't recall.
Trying to get him to explain it better?
Yeah, if I remember right, he said it had a wood handle, and it was steel, but I can't remember anything else. It might have been, I don't know why I'm thinking he might have said something about a sword. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sorry. I can't.
Well,
If I do, I'll let you know.
Okay. In that case, this will conclude the statement at about 11:01 a.m.